I'm Chris.
And I'm Kiley. And this is Redefining Resilience,
where we explore what it means to build a resilient lifestyle
so you can thrive in any and every situation. All right, so we are here with a friend, Marissa Hendrickson.
Hello.
Thank you for coming here.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited.
I know, we are too. So Marissa and I have known each other for quite a few years, and over the past few years, I've just been observing you from afar. And if you don't follow Marissa on TikTok, you absolutely should, because she posts the best videos. They will make you laugh and make you cry all at the same time. And I just think, when I think of resilience, like, you are the pinnacle of resilience. And I know you said you don't see it, but I think after today's conversation, everyone is going to agree that your journey and story is truly remarkable. And the mindset and the attitude that you have on a daily basis is like beyond admirable and inspirational. So we wanted to have you here today to talk a little bit about your journey and tell us a little bit about what you're going through and what you've been going through over the years. So I'm just going to let you tell us a little bit of, what's going on in your life.
Yeah. Honestly, at first I was like, is someone cutting onions? I got a little, I got a little emotional. It's just, I think when you hear someone else say that you're doing a good job, and because you don't get that pat on the back every day.
Yeah.
And so when you do, you're like, oh, wow, like it's a different perspective. Mm-hmm. So thank you. That was amazing. So I appreciate it. But I have always been a very sickly kid. I don't really know another way to describe it. Within 24 hours of being born, I was back in the NICU with RSV, tons of issues. Growing up, I sprained ligaments, tore tendons, I subluxed joints, dislocations, and I guess I kind of thought it was normal because you fight through it. As an athlete playing basketball and golf, you just, rub some dirt on it and get back out there. For me, that was easier said than done. My dad was also my basketball coach. So that was really tricky because you want to do your best at everything. And I am the most competitive psycho. I will fight until I can't anymore.
So don't play Monopoly against you?
No. The board will be thrown.
Yeah, I get that.
It will be violent.
I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
yeah.
Cool. We'll just stay away. Yeah.
My dad was my basketball coach also, and I guarantee he probably would have traded me for you in a heartbeat because I averaged 1 point a season. No joke. 1 point. That was because I scored a layup in 1 year. So I got 2 total points over the course of the 2 years I played basketball.
Was this like an elementary school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That means,
Yeah.
Okay. But you tried.
I did
You
try.
looked adorable doing it. The
sure.
cute little uniform.
My mom will say my
that.
greatest accomplishment was elbowing this kid in the face because he knocked my glasses off.
I love that for you.
Thank you.
You always had.
I woke up and I
love
chose
that.
violence.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm like 5'5", and I'm like, Dad, put me in the post. I got to get down there because I have some things to do.
We got to whoop some ass.
Yeah, we got to handle this. No one else is, so I'm going to. So, going from all of the medical issues as far as physically dislocating everything and being in pain, I guess I thought pain was normal. I think I got to a point where I was in so much pain that I would wake up and I was like, okay, take some Tylenol and get through it. And then it got to the point in August of 2022 where I was having issues breathing. It felt like there was a brick on my chest. I've also openly struggled with anxiety and depression. So I'm like, I don't think this is a panic attack. I don't think it's an anxiety attack. It feels very different. And I would go to the hospital. They would say, it's anxiety. You know, you're definitely dealing with a lot right now. Like your work is a lot. You just need to go home and take some deep breaths. And I'm like, okay, thank you for nothing. Or
by the way, here's $1,000 for my ER visit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, great, this is super fun. And then the next symptom was extreme migraines. And I've had optical migraine, like I've had little headaches like that you would maybe consider a migraine, but these were like unbearable, could not open my eyes kind of migraines. And so I talked myself out of going to the hospital because I'm like, they're not going to do anything to help me at this point. So then finally I'm at work one day. My left arm was numb in the way that when you wake up and like you know, like
sleep on your arm the wrong way.
Yeah, it's like falling asleep, and you know, you're just like, oh, I'll just shake it out. Like I'll be fine in a little bit. Well, it had been like halfway through the day, and it was still numb and tingly.
Oh my gosh!
And having the mindset I grew up with, I was like, it's fine. It'll come back. Like try to move your fingers. Like I was hitting it on things, like trying to get it to like literally feel something, and I finally was like, I need to go to the hospital. So I called my mom. We went to the ER. And after being dismissed so many times in my life, I finally said, I need you to give me an MRI. And I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm not leaving here without an MRI.
Good for you.
And they were like, okay. Like, we've never had a patient request, like, and a very expensive test, but if you're insistent. So they come back in later and they're like, we actually found a syrinx inside of your spinal cord, which could be the cause of a lot of your symptoms. And in that moment, I remember just kind of blacking out because it was like that validation, but also knowing that there actually was something was terrifying.
Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah, it was like, I'm so glad I was right. I'm very proud of myself for sticking up for myself and like advocating for myself. But the fact that there truly was something was wild to me. So then from there, it was kind of just a snowball effect of symptoms increasing, new symptoms every day. And the syrinx can grow. It can stay the same. Some people are born with it. They don't even know they have it.
Wow.
Sometimes it's trauma related. Mine, they just are saying it's from my Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome because
Which is
of
what?
So Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is a connective tissue disorder. So growing up with the subluxations and the tendon issues, the ligament issues, it's putting that constant strain on my body, which when you think about it, it's like you're in a traffic jam and you want to go, but you can't move. And then like maybe there's little dings of the car. And so over time, the syrinx is what was developed inside of my spinal cord from all of the trauma that was going on throughout my body.
Wow.
Which is, and Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is genetic, we found out. So that...
Can you test for that? Like, did your parents get tested?
I'm not sure which one of my parents gave it to me because
like, we need some answers. We need to know which one to blame.
Right. Oh, yeah. I think I'll always blame my dad because he was my coach. Like that's just like an immediate
shout out to Dad.
I love you, Gary. But I did actually go through like extensive genetic testing. Dr. Francomano is the world-renowned Ehlers-Danlos specialist, and because I had another doctor that was like, your case is extreme, I was able to get into her within like 6 months when she had a 3-year wait list.
Are you kidding?
It was insane. Like I had never been so thankful in my life.
Where's she based out of?
She's in Indy. Yeah, she's actually a professor at IU.
Oh my gosh.
And she's one of like 3 people in the U.S. that study Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's just something that's kind of brushed under the table. There's different kinds of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I have the HOPE kind of Ehlers-Danlos, so that's obviously accounts for the subluxations and whatnot that I've talked about. So that played a big part in how they believe the syrinx grew and developed. Since then, I have developed another small syrinx from my T4 to T5. And then that first syrinx I had that was originally starting at C6 to T2 has grown up into my C5 area. And so that's when it gets scary. That's when you're like, hope for the best, expect the worst. But it's really hard to have that hope when you keep getting shut down and you keep getting the negativity.
Yeah.
I think that's something I really struggle with, like mentally, on top of the pain. And then with that umbrella that is under syringomyelia with the syrinxes, you have the Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, POTS, which is Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia syndrome, which is basically a fancy term of your blood pressure dropping while your heart rate is rising. So you pass out a lot.
Oh my God.
And it's kind of like a little family tree of disorders that are related. And then I mentioned like the Chiari malformation. So I have my brainstem, part of my brain is basically falling through my brainstem, which is also putting pressure on that spinal cord and spinal canal. So I got a lot going on. Yeah. But I'm very thankful in a way that this is going to sound so weird, but I'm kind of thankful that I was the one that, or one of the people that has had this diagnosis, because I know I can handle it. Like, I know some people wouldn't be able to, and everyone has bad days, but I take it and I use my humor, or I have my animals. You know how much I love my animals. I have different ways to tackle it. So in a weird way, I'm really grateful that I'm one of the ones that got this, because I know I can tackle it, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I think that is enormous perspective to have. And you've been through some shit.
I sure have.
I've seen the photos and the videos on TikTok that you've posted, and you've spent a lot of time in the hospital.
So much. And one of the questions that you had brought up was, what was one of the scariest moments for me? Yeah. And besides just all the diagnoses, when I was having one of my breathing episodes, and I try to work through it because medical trauma is real. Going into a hospital, if you've dealt with medical trauma, it triggers that fight or flight real quick. But I finally got to the point with my breathing issues where I was like, okay, I have to go to the hospital. I don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. And I went in thinking, they're probably going to give me a new inhaler, maybe some oxygen. And then next thing I know, I end up on a ventilator for 7 days. And it was the most wild 7 days of my life, because with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you have an ultra rapid metabolizer gene. So for those 7 days, I was basically fully awake while I was supposed to be fully sedated.
Oh.
And so I always have a lot to say. I mean, if I don't know the answer to something, give me 20 minutes to do some research and I will have an opinion. I will talk forever. And so being on a ventilator and not being able to talk, I was writing things down. I was tell this to this person, full-blown communication with doctors, parents, because I was so awake during it. So it was kind of I was stuck in my body, and it was wild.
What a crazy experience.
It was intense. Finally got off the ventilator. They finally were like, we're going to try to wean her off of it. And I don't know if like my extended family knows this part of it. And I guess when you talk about resilience, this is something I will brag a little bit on. They had said, we're going to try to take her off the ventilator and see how she does. Well, the night before that happened, because I was so awake, they would give me my phone sometimes. And I saw a message on Facebook Messenger from our neighbor that my dog got out. Because, I mean, I hadn't been there. He's a rescue. He was having anxiety like his mother. And and I saw the message from my neighbor, and I pulled out the ventilator myself.
Shut up.
I just straight pulled it out. Like, done. Get me home. I need my dog. It was insane.
That's fucking wild.
Oh my God.
The doctors, and I don't think I've even, like, we've had conversations, but I don't think I've ever told you that.
No.
Because the doctors...
What did they say?
The doctors were losing their minds. Like, my mom said that, like, everything in the ICU stopped. Like, all the doctors, all the nurses, they all, like, ran into my room. They, like, gave me, like, 10 times the sedation I needed. And
oh,
then,
my
like,
gosh.
It, like, knocked me out. I had, like, full ICU psychosis because of, like, all the sedation. But they were like, this girl has to, like, chill. Like, and I woke up and they're like, she might have, you know, damage to her throat or her vocal cords, or because she just yanked this out when you're supposed to do it a specific way medically. And I was just like, I think I'm done with this.
What were you planning on doing? Running out of there, running home?
Right? I know. And now I'm like, talk about ballsy.
Yeah.
That I see, like, and I mean, I can barely even read because I'm so sedated. I just see, like, I think I see your dog running in the neighborhood. And I was like, all right, well, it's time to go home. I'm going to take this out of my mouth, and I will see you doctors when I see you.
Well, it's not really just in your mouth. Like, it's not a mouthpiece.
In your body.
Yeah, it's like
that sucker is all the way to your lungs. Yeah, that's a long tube.
Yeah, it was all the way down, and I had no issue just pulling it right out. I've always had a very high pain tolerance.
Clearly.
And even sedated, like, I mean, even to this day, like, I mean, they've been trying to get me to use a feeding tube because I don't get enough nutrition. Because of the gastroparesis, it's pushing on the nerves surrounding my stomach and my bowels. And so I don't get a lot of nutrition. And so for that, obviously they want to supplement with different like feeding tubes, and they were wanting to do like a colostomy type of situation. And they tried the feeding tube 2 or 3 times, and I got home and I get kind of claustrophobic.
Did you pull that one out too?
I sure did. And I didn't do it just once. I did it 3 times.
Stop it.
And like, it was all the way down, like in your, like, I forget what it's called, but it's like past your like stomach. It's down there. And I got home and my dad was like, stop, I'm calling your cousin that's a nurse. Like, do not do anything until I get back. And he walks in and it's like fully out of my nose. And I think also I was listening to my body in that moment. And I'm like, my body is not liking this. My brain is not liking this. If I need to go drink a protein shake, I'll make myself do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here with a tube down my nose.
Oh my gosh.
I think there's a level of, I own this. This is my life. I want this. I control my environment. The healthcare system's attempting to take all the variables away from you, so it's controlled for you. The problem with that is you lose independence. And to be an independent person and to be driven and focused and want what you want, it would be impossible to say, I'm going to take simple variables away. Like, it would just make no sense.
Exactly. And it's difficult because I am a very strong-willed person, if you haven't already picked that up. But I think it's hard because I over the course of the last 3 years, I've had to adjust to moving back home with my parents. Yeah. There's days where I can't even get out of bed by myself. I can't shower by myself all the time. I can't walk up the stairs by myself. Little everyday things. And so I think you do have to find that line, because everyone has one. And sometimes you don't realize it until it's crossed. But for me, I read the situation immediately and I was like, yep, this is my line. We're not doing this. And I've had to draw that line with other situations, like the colostomy. For me, that's something that personally I will never agree to, even though they said it is medically necessary. I will not agree to it. I don't have feeling on the left side of my body. So it would be extremely difficult for me to handle a colostomy bag. Ventilators, I said never again. If I'm in the hospital and I'm having trouble breathing, then you can give me oxygen, you can give me medication, but I will never be put back on a ventilator again.
And in case you have to go save your dog.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you never know when Ernie Els is going to need me.
Yes, exactly.
He's an angel.
What was the name of that again?
Ernie Els.
Ernie Els?
I told you I grew up a golfer.
I don't watch sports in any capacity, so
Ernie.
I don't know who
Ernie
that is.
Els is a legend.
There you go.
He's a legend golfer. Yeah. And I also named him that because I knew my parents were going to get so annoyed that I even got a dog. So I was like, oof, who's one of my favorite golfers that my dad's going to be like, okay, well, like, that's a really good one you chose.
Right.
You know?
What kind of dog is this?
He is a little mutt. I actually paid for DNA testing for him because I'm that dog mom. But he's a little mutt. He's got a little bit of everything, a little bit of like terrier, got a little bit of pit bull, a little bit of chihuahua. He's like 35 pounds.
Oh, it's perfect.
He's a little nugget. Yeah. I mean, I feel like Frenchies are about...
Yeah, Herman's like 42 pounds.
Okay.
So he's like maybe a ginormous Frenchie.
Okay. I was going to say maybe 2 to 4, maybe he could go down.
Yeah, they're about the same size, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I was like, the life that I have now, I don't know what the future looks like. So every day, no matter what it is, I'm going to live it the way I want to live it. And I'm choosing to not, do anything that feels uncomfortable or unsafe or just not me. I mean, I have a very strong personality. And if I say no, it's a no. Like, I'm done.
Good for you. Yeah. I mean, you got to live life on your terms.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does everyday life look like for you?
It is so different every day. The fact that I'm sitting here right now is honestly blowing my mind. I told you the other day, I was like, I am so excited to put mascara on because there's some days where, most days, I sometimes cannot get out of bed because I can't feel my legs and it's too difficult for me to walk. My parents... Thank God, I would probably be in some kind of a home without them because I lean on them for everything. But every day is so different. If I have a good day, I take advantage of it like full force. But then you have the after effects of suffering from doing everything you wanted to do. And to me, that's worth it. I would rather be like, YOLO. We're doing this. I know I'm going to struggle later, but like, I really want to go see this concert. So we're going to have some fun and then we're going to suffer for the next week, but it's going to be okay because you're going to look back at these videos and these pictures and remember that you had the best time of your life.
Yeah. I hope Taylor Swift knows what you've sacrificed for her.
I wrote her a 7-page letter. Okay, Kylie. And it was... Gosh. That makes me sound like such a psycho. But it was about...
Can we get Taylor Swift to come? Like, can we do a Make-A-Wish thing and get her to come
I joke with
hang
Carrie
out with
about
you?
That all the time. But here's the thing. It wasn't even about... First of all, I would like to say it was before she announced her indie tour or like her indie concert. I didn't even know that was happening. And I was like, hopefully I'll see you in Indy someday. And then she announced that she was coming to Indy.
Because you manifested it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was obviously in my brain.
Yeah.
But for me, I had a really tough experience at the stadium in Cincinnati. And as far as ADA accommodations, and if there's one thing about me, it's that I'm gonna talk, I'm gonna be loud, and I'm gonna say something. And I know that it was not necessarily, the employees' faults. Obviously, it's not Taylor Swift's fault, but like,
yeah, we're gonna blame her though.
It's Taylor, like you're about to be sued.
Just kidding. Marissa still adores you.
I'm obsessed with you. But it was so sad because I had been waiting. And I had done my research. I went with my sister. We did our research as far as like where to go for ADA accommodations, like who to talk to, what gate to enter. We had like our T's completely crossed. And getting there was okay. Leaving, it was rough. We even waited probably a good 10 minutes until people kind of cleared out. And then I asked someone, where do I go for my wheelchair? We requested a wheelchair. Where do I go for that? And he said, join the line. There were over 100 people in line waiting for a wheelchair.
Do what?
What?
Mm-hmm. And I said, so I, being me, I go to the front of the line and I say, what's the issue here? And they felt terrible, obviously, but he said, there are 25 wheelchairs that we are trying to take you guys back and forth. But obviously it's a stadium. It's huge. So I don't know how long you guys are going to be waiting here for. They were starting to take the chairs up. We didn't have anywhere to sit.
Are you kidding?
They took
rough.
the chairs away from
the floor seating. They were starting
from
to pack
people
up.
waiting for
they had
wheelchairs.
to pack up for that next tour or the
Christmas.
next city. Yeah, they were packing up for the next city, and to me, it was one of those things where like there were some people that already had wheelchairs. They were just waiting for things to clear out. But seeing even like older people with their walkers, seeing younger kids with their cane, like their parents having to hold them, and it's like, I do not sit by and watch things happen. It's very hard for me to keep my mouth shut. And so that whole situation happened. I ended up getting to the bottom of it when I was leaving, because once I finally got a wheelchair, it was probably a solid like hour and a half or so waiting and just like standing. Once I got a wheelchair, I got up to the exit, and all of these other people with disabilities, some invisible, some visible, were waiting there. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm gonna have to like beat some ass again. So I am like, what's the issue now? What is happening? And this very polite employee was like, when you guys exit this way, if you're parked on the other side of the stadium, you have to walk all the way around.
What?
So for those of us that didn't bring a wheelchair because we were told there would be some available, we had to walk all the way around the stadium. And I mean, anyway, I feel like everyone's gone to a football game at some point. You know how big a stadium is. It was a lot.
Yeah, it's probably like over a mile.
Oh,
once
100%.
it's said and done.
Oh, the next day I was like, I felt like the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. It was horrible. But to me too, I feel like if I wouldn't have even said anything, they probably just would have chilled until like the wheelchairs came back. At least the guy that I asked like got on his walkie-talkie and was like, this line is like intense. We gotta get this going. But that was the full 7-page letter I wrote to her. It wasn't even about like how her lyrics and like songs have changed my life and her quotes about handling different things. I adore her and her personality, but it was truly just me like almost using it as an outlet, I think, because I needed to get it out, and I know that she can make a change. And like I think I just was secretly hoping that someone on her team would like slide it to someone important and try to make a difference at events like this, because it was horrible. It was really hard to watch.
I've never even thought of that, though. I've been to how many games and concerts, and I've just never thought about it.
No.
And that's something that I say all the time. You don't think about it until you're in that position.
Yeah.
And when you look at someone else that, you know, is in a wheelchair or uses a cane like I do, or a walker, you know, you might look at them and be like, oh, you know, like, I'm going to hold the door open for you, or whatever it may be like that. I mean, hopefully everyone is going to have that act of kindness, but you don't realize the intensity until you are that person.
Yeah.
And so when that coin was flipped, I can definitely get passionate, I'll say, when it comes to issues. And this was something that I couldn't let it go. So this was one of the things I posted on TikTok, and I should have done it in a more condensed way now that I look back. But the first video I posted, it was horrifying because I started to explain the situation, and there immediately were hundreds of comments saying the same thing happened to me. Oh, this happened here. This happened there. I ended up being interviewed by, I think it was Wish TV, like the local
That's awesome.
indie TV station, because they were like, so we've seen your videos. Would you like to say something on TV? And I was like, tell me when.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed being that like advocate for a moment and making sure that people knew that that's just unacceptable.
I feel like we make so many changes for so much goofy shit that doesn't matter that we actually ignore the things that matter. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely no reason you couldn't have 10,000 wheelchairs in that place. You have the space, you have the employee base. You just didn't do it.
Yep.
It's like rowboats on the Titanic. Why the fuck are they not there? That's ridiculous.
That was one of my thoughts. I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I Jack? What is happening?
Just never let go, okay?
Like, oh my gosh, like, this is it for me. But it's so true. Like, you don't, there was no excuse for it. It was the Paycor Stadium. I know you have the money.
Right.
Why can we not afford like at least another 100 wheelchairs? What if you had a smaller concert for people that had disabilities? I mean, even the people that have autism or another invisible illness that can't handle walking through crowds, they need a wheelchair too. Like, why was it not there? Why was this not handled? It was extremely frustrating to me. So I loved being kind of like that little mini superhero in that situation. Yeah. I was like I said today, I could talk about this kind of stuff forever because I've had to learn so much the hard way sometimes.
Well, I think the reason it doesn't exist, or the reason you get into positions like that, is because nobody is acting as the superhero. People don't want to disrupt systems because they don't want to they don't want to be a burden by disrupting the system. So if 10,000 people are walking through just fine, I don't want to be the one that complains. But if you're the one that complains, you now fix it for all the people that don't want to complain. So I think that's fantastic. I'm behind you 100%. So
Thank you.
The more you want to press the system.
I feel like you guys both would be that person too.
Absolutely.
To like call it out.
Yeah.
Well, the system's broken in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Like we think the system's broken in healthcare. We think the system's broken in insurance.
100%.
We think the system's broken in schooling. Like the only way, and part of the reason we have this podcast, the only way to fix the systems is to bring up the problems so now we can work on it.
Yeah, let's do better.
Exactly.
We're not doing enough. Yeah. That's for sure. Okay, so these are just basic things, right? Like I go to a concert, I don't even think about. my spoiled self is thinking like, okay, should we leave before the encore so we can beat the traffic, right? Like, I'm not even thinking about how I can actually physically exit the building without getting stomped all over or having some sort of injury, right? What are some other things that now, looking back, you're like, man, I miss not having to worry about these things? Like, what are the little things that...
Honestly, this is something I took for granted. And it's such a simple thing, but driving was like my time alone. It was my time to reflect. It was my time to listen to podcasts and like scream music. And that's something I like deeply miss, because you think like, you know, you turn 16, you get your driver's license, you get a car, and you're just like used to that. That's oddly a big thing for me. I adopted Ernie 3 months before I was diagnosed with this, oddly enough. And I think that's also why we have such a weird, special connection, because if it wasn't for him and his cuddles on my bad days, I don't know how I would have gotten through them.
Yeah.
But taking him for a walk.
I know. I get it.
It's like taking a dog for a walk is so therapeutic. Or even just playing fetch with them.
Yeah.
Like it to me, it's like, it's medicine, you know, it's healing.
Yeah.
So little things like that. I mean, going to the grocery store, I'm like exhausted going through Target. It's to me, that's a full Spartan race.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I just walked all the way around Target. I'm going to go sleep for 6 to 7 days. Yeah. I'll see you in a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
But at the same time, like I said earlier, I do try to push myself to do those things sometimes. The other bigger thing that I think comes to mind is working.
Yeah.
I loved what I did and what I still do kind of on the side, but being able to be creative is such a special thing to me. And editing videos and being able to talk to people like this, it's something that I loved, that connection. I loved seeing it come together, and it was such a beautiful thing to me. So losing that I felt like I was mourning a part of me almost. Yeah. I do think sometimes I kind of go through the grieving process a little bit. And I think anyone does in certain situations, even if you don't lose someone. I think if you even lose a friend or you lose a job, like, you go through so many emotions. But I think someone that has a chronic illness, someone that has a lifelong disease, it's like you go through that process, but it's, instead of like you get to that point at the end where you feel more healed, you just go through it again.
Yeah.
Which is tough.
Well, because you can't do anything about it.
Right. It's completely out of my hands.
Well, it makes me like a little bit teary-eyed over here listening because, well, it how many times have we as a collective, I say, because I work with a lot of high performers, right, in the working world. And how many times do we take for granted the fact that we get to work?
Right.
And for you to not be able to when you want to so badly, it just is, it gives perspective, right? Because even when you're stressed out about work or you're having a bad day, you get to see colleagues or you get to do the work. And so I think it really puts it into perspective. Like, we get to work.
And it brings you so much happiness and fulfillment to help these people.
Yeah.
And I see that. I see that on your Instagram page and like in your podcast. Like, you know when someone is in the right field. And so when you lose that, it is extremely difficult. And it's the same thing with what we were talking about earlier, me being an athlete. I played golf through college. And I'm going to be super honest right now. I stopped playing. After high school, I didn't play for a long time because I was really burnt out. I got to college and I was like, you know what? Let's make some friends. Let's get a tan. We're going to have a good time. So I joined the golf team, and I met some of my greatest friends through the golf team. I had the greatest coach in the world, and losing the ability, it might sound so silly to some people, but like losing the ability to grip a club and to be, because of my hand, not being able to stand there over the ball and have the right stance, and enjoy that connection of golfing with my dad or my mom, my sister, being able to be like, wow, that shot sucked. Like, it's like it's a fun thing that I had gotten back into over the last few years before getting sick, and losing that was, oh man, like that ate me up, because I'm a good golfer. I'm not going to say that like I'm not like professional or anything. I mean, I played D3, but I'm good. Like, I had a great time doing it, and I'm not afraid to say that. And so for me, losing the ability to be an athlete was traumatic, and it brought up even like childhood trauma, because you have those moments where you're like, this sucks. Like, I remember throwing the basketball over our fence because I was so pissed off. I like missed a shot, or my dad's like getting upset because I messed something up, and you just get so freaking mad. And then you get on this side of it and you're like, oh, I would give anything to go back to that, you know? And that's where it's tough, seeing golfers or even watching a basketball game. Like, it's hard for me to sit through a Pacer game, and I love watching basketball. I love watching golf. It's hard for me to watch it just because of that mental aspect of it, I think.
Yeah. What would you say to the people who are capable of physical activity?
Let me just say something real quick.
Okay.
You now get to relay the passion. People misstep the passion all the time. They'll focus on the bullshit lift, the problem, the miss, the mistake, the garbage, the waking up early, the diets, the stuff they don't like, and they totally fucking miss the passion. You still have the passion. That's like what the best coaches have, is passion. Capability is fantastic, but it's null and fucking void without passion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's fantastic that you still like adjust yourself in your chair when you talk about it. We talk about hiring coaches and stuff. And
when I see someone else, it takes everything in me to not be like, you are holding that putter the wrong way, and I want to correct you, but I can't. Like, I'm not going to be that person, but like, you need to change the alignment of your feet right now. You are missing this putt.
Yeah. But I mean, that's still there, right? Like that is like, that's huge. It's huge. It's good.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of people out there who are not physically active, but they're physically capable of it. What words would you share with them? You know, you're in a position where you have the desire, but you don't have the physical capabilities of picking up some dumbbells or going out on the golf course. Like, what would you say to those people who are maybe not taking advantage of their physical capabilities?
I think, that's tough, because it's so cliche to say, don't take it for granted, but it's true at the end of the day, because you don't know, another cliche, you don't know what you have until you lose it. Mm-hmm. And so if you have the ability to work out, take your dog for a walk, even if it's not every day, try to utilize your body. You are given one body in this life. If you do not take care of it, if you do not protect it, if you do not take advantage of these legs and these arms and your brain, and if you do not take advantage of what you are given, what is it for? What is it worth? Because at that point, you might as well just give up.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to me sometimes when I see people that don't take advantage of that. I want to like punch them in the face because I want to like shake them. It's like, you don't know what you have. So it's hard.
Yeah.
I swear I'm a tough bitch.
Well, I was tearing up already, so.
Well, it's not like this isn't a heavy conversation.
I know, right?
But it is so important because you have to take advantage of, I mean, just everyday life in general, but you have to take advantage of the body you have. And it's tough to, as someone who deals with daily pain and daily struggles and frustrations, seeing people waste what they're given is really difficult for anyone that goes through something like this. So freaking do it. If you've been wanting to like go sky jumping and go to Disney World and do something with your kids and you're not in the mood, take them to the park. You don't know if you're going to get in a car accident on the way home. Go hang out with your kids at the park. Let's go play hide and seek.
Yeah.
Because you have legs that you can use.
Oh, yeah. How do you stay so positive?
Oh my gosh. When you sent me that question, I was like, if someone could see, if I had a hidden camera in my house, you would be like, she should probably go to a mental hospital because it is not always like this. I think it's really important to have these open conversations, and I'm so grateful for it, but the positivity is tough. And I think something that I've learned through this is that it's not always just straight positivity. It's what you might think is positivity is me just getting through the day.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, you're doing great today. But to me, I'm like, it took me 4 hours to get out of bed, take a shower, try to stomach some granola, took my migraine medication, and now I'm here. And I have a lot of concealer on and I'm wearing makeup. So you might think I'm feeling better, and that's fine. I don't ever correct anybody, but like I'm still feeling like shit, even if I look like my old self.
Yeah.
And for me, it's hard when people try to, I don't want to say shove things down your throat, but when they say things like, well, have you tried GABA? Have you tried acupuncture? And I know that they're being positive, but to me, it's almost like the toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I know you want to help and I love you so much for that. But it gets to a point where it's like, if it's out there, I've tried it. I promise you, I've tried everything. And that's okay that it's not working. I'm okay with that. I have come to terms with that. But that's where like the positivity aspect is hard for me, because I am positive. And a lot of that I do think is masking. I put on that, face for people and they're like, wow, she's doing great. Like she's definitely making improvements. But then I go home and I scream at my pillow until I just stop sobbing, because I don't want to hurt the people around me by looking sick or saying I don't feel good.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't benefit anybody. Like, I don't want to like kill the vibe, you know? So I think masking is a lot of it. And I think people mask for different reasons, but for me, masking, I think, is my version of positivity, honestly.
Yeah.
Which, you know, takes energy too.
Is there anything that helps?
It's funny because after I got off the ventilator, it was probably 2 or 3 months later. And remember, I have all this like medical trauma, and I got to the point with pain one night that I was like, I think I'm dying. Like, the pain is this bad. I need to go to the hospital. And they, knowing my history, they were not afraid to give me like pain medication. And of course, I'm like fully coherent, like for all of these really intense pain medications. I'm still, you know, just sitting there crying, but still awake, no relief. And then they finally gave me a medication called Valium.
Oh, yeah.
Which for me relaxed the spasticity in my body. So medically, that's the only prescription that can help with, I mean, sometimes you can even see my leg or my arm like having that spasm. And when you're already in pain and you already have that feeling like it's falling asleep, and then you get that spasm on top of it, it's like a Charlie horse all over your body. So when you get that relief from I know it's not a muscle relaxer, but you get that relief from the spasms. And it wasn't even like a large amount of it. And within 5 minutes, I was like, oh my gosh, I can breathe. Like, this is incredible. And so I take that. Other than that, honestly, it's a lot of self-soothing, not to sound like a newborn infant, but I mean, truly, you have to sit with yourself and feel your feelings and do what you have to do to get through it, because there's no other way around it. You can't like go around the circle. Like, you have to fully just dive in the cave. You know?
I think that's the number one issue with most people through life, is they circle the issue for years and years and years, and fucking 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, they can no longer circle the issues, and then they're presented with 50 years of bullshit, and they can't take it. Mm-hmm. That's how we end up with alcoholics and drug abuse and all these other myriad of problems, is because they don't force themselves to sit and go, okay, this sucks. Like, what do I do with this suck right now? How do I deal with this? How do I process it? Or at least come to grips with it? I think you have a powerful message. I mean, just in self-development and understanding one's internal communication. The internal communication scares the shit out of people. That's why people go to sleep with the TV on. That's why they talk to people all the time before they go to bed.
Full darkness.
Yeah.
It's because they're terrified of what's inside. Because what's inside doesn't make sense, and they don't have anybody else to talk to but the person that's living there.
Right.
You're with the person that's living there, and you are friends with yourself. Yeah. That in and of itself is phenomenal. That lesson is probably one of the most important ones you can teach people.
And it's taken me, I hope that you guys and anyone else, I hope no one believes that this is just like a magical wand that, you know, I've been able to just do. This has been like the struggle of my life. Yeah. And before I was even sick, I mean, you struggle with that before an illness. But then when I got sick, it was like, I have to take my time with this, and I have to figure this out. And I went through periods of taking it out on people. Like, my parents are saints for the shit I have like said to them and put them through when I was angry. And I mean, I've I've walked out of a doctor's office, said some very choice words, and slammed the door. I don't regret it. I mean, like, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But at the same time, you have to then reflect on what was just said or what just happened. And if you don't take that time to reflect, then your brain is just going to keep going in that same anger or anxiety or whatever it may be. And then you spiral. I don't know. I do.
Yeah.
That right there is just that's such a phenomenal lesson.
Yeah.
The words that come out of your mouth come from something. What is the stimulus that created that something? And how do I process that something? So I either redo this pattern, or I fix the pattern, or I just come to grips with the fact that I want to go into that.
Yeah.
So these words came out of my mouth because of a frustrating situation and something that's out of my control, but it's always going to be out of my control. So how do I fix how I communicate? Like, that's phenomenal. That's huge.
Thank you. It has taken a very long time, and I still struggle with it. But at the same time, it's something that out of all of the things that you can't control, especially with a prognosis like mine, something I can control is sitting with that and reflecting on that, because I have always been like the most reactive person, but I try very hard now more than ever to be intentional, because I think if you're not intentional, even if you mess it up, like, you can still fuck up whatever you want to say, but that's also a lesson. So you then go back and still reflect on that.
Yeah, even wise things are lessons.
Yes.
So
good or bad.
Yeah. I tell my daughters all the time, the thing that they should respond with is the thing they think about just a little bit longer, because the thing that comes initially to your head tends to be an emotional reaction, and emotions aren't truth. Mm-hmm. So Jordan Peterson, I read all of his books, but one of his things he said is true thinkers we don't have a lot of true thinkers. We have self-criticizing thought processes that we think is us thinking through situations, but all it is us beating ourselves up. What does everybody else think about me in this? What does everybody else think about how I'm processing or what I'm about to say, as opposed to what's actually the truth? What should I actually say here? Mm-hmm. So to spend that much time in your noggin, one, is terrifying. So it's a big space in there, you know. But to be able to process that and understand that's the process you have to go through in order to become better and to understand how to communicate clearer, it's profound.
Yeah. I sent this to a friend a couple months ago. My therapist said, no matter what is happening, I mean, I guess unless there's like a fire or like an emergency situation, but in a conversation or in a situation, you will always have time to take that pause, even if it's just a few seconds.
And it changes the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
so when you say something or do something and someone is just that immediate clap back, you're like, whoa, bro, let's take a second and like rewind. And that's where the perspective for me has changed, because I used to be that person, and I still can be, like I said, but I think what you said, taking that time to be more careful and intentional with how your brain is processing that information is just like crucial.
One thing you taught me, Kiley, was the brain doesn't understand the difference between reality and what you tell it. So if we say things out loud, you can't pull that back. That energy's in the ether. It's out there forever. And your brain tries to validate it, whether or not you argue with it. You know, if I say the sky's red, you know, I'm going to have to unvalidate that. I spend energy to try to undo that reality, especially words spoken with a lot of emotion, anger, sadness, whatever. They carry a lot of weight. Therefore, they're really heavy to put back, and they're impossible to put back.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's hard enough to deal with emotions, like just as a normal person, right? But I have to imagine that if I put myself in your shoes, I would feel like my body is turned against me. Like
it's the enemy.
It is the enemy. Yeah. And I don't know how, because it's so easy for someone who's healthy, right, to slip into a victim mindset. And you make a conscious decision every single day, despite the fact that your body is fighting against you. And you have to mentally overcome those challenges every day. How do you not fall into a victim mindset?
I definitely do at times. I think that's human, but I think that part of it you have to be honest with yourself, because it's either you're going to take this day and do something with it, or you're not. And just because you're not, because my body's not allowing me to, doesn't mean I'm less than. It means it's just fighting a battle, and that's okay. It loses a lot more times than it wins, but it doesn't make me a victim. And I don't necessarily believe it even makes me stronger. I think that it just is a new way that I had to learn to balance things. I definitely at first was like, this sucks. I don't, why is this happening to me? And like listening to the last podcast, everything when you guys were first starting out, it was like you were in my brain, because it's so true. You are like, well, I have bad karma, or, whatever stupid thing you want to think. But at the end of the day, it's happening. So you can either make the decision to really handle it in a way that benefits you and benefits the people around you and benefits your body, or you can fight it and sink into this hole of sadness. And I mean, it's hard not to do that, but all you can do is try.
Yeah. Ugh.
Well, you're doing an exceptional job.
I know.
So,
thank you. I could honestly keep going.
It was a very, very empowering conversation. So,
I know. And it really, it makes me feel very grateful. And also, like, what can we do to help? Like, if we're listening and you want to help, like, how can we help? What can we do to support your cause? Because I know you're really active from an awareness standpoint. So tell us a little bit more.
I've said for a long time now that I wanted to like just completely get rid of social media. I think it can be a very unhealthy place.
Yeah.
And I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
And for me, it became not just unhealthy, it became inauthentic. And if there's anything that I am, it is authentic. I will never say something that I don't believe is true. And if I do say something out of reaction, like we said, I look back and I apologize for it, or at least I try to, but I don't have the Facebook app on my phone. I don't have my own personal Instagram anymore. I still post like silly stories and stuff, but the only Instagram account I have is the account I use just bringing awareness to what I deal with medically and connecting with the chronic illness, rare disease community has been absolutely amazing. I have met people. There's a girl in Spain that we have all of the same things.
Really?
And we talk about it on Instagram Messenger. Like, I mean, we DM each other like, oh my gosh, I'm having such a bad day. Aww. Or whatever it may be. You have that community. One of a girl that I went to high school with, she has Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. We text a few times a week, especially when we're struggling, because no one really gets it unless you have it.
How common is it?
It's not common at all. Like, each subcategory of syringomyelia, you don't have to have, all of them. But I know for hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos is a little bit more common because it's truly just, it was honestly my party trick growing up. I was like, hey, super flexible, like, look what I can do. And it was great for golf because, swinging a club,
right?
Yep.
It was awesome. But then obviously learning all the trauma it causes. But Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is a little bit more common. POTS is more common, and all of these are more common in women. POTS is more common in women. Syringomyelia is definitely like the less common of them all. And I don't know the specific numbers, but I want to say it's either 7 or 8. I want to say it's 8 in 100,000. And wow. So I know that I'm not alone, but it was about finding that community that made me feel less alone. Mm-hmm. So that was a big game changer for me, being able to find people to connect with. That's been awesome. And another note, as far as what people can do, this is not something that you need to like specifically educate yourself on. I think that learning about disability rights is extremely important. Being more mindful of ADA accommodations is obviously extremely important today more than ever, because we have come such a long way as far as disabilities are handled and looked at. But the irony of what I'm about to say. So Bobby Jones, I know you guys aren't golfers, but Bobby Jones, he is known as the father of the Masters. I feel like everyone knows the Masters tournament, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank God.
We're not that.
Okay, cool. I feel,
in the dark.
I feel better.
I used to drink beer and watch it, so
yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
That's the only time I ever watched golf.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That it's a very important tournament. So he co-founded the Masters tournament. He was an incredible golfer, and crazy enough, he died from syringomyelia. And
really?
So his family started a foundation in his name that funds research and holds walks, and we have community support groups. And so it's called the Bobby Jones Syringomyelia Chiari Malformation Foundation. And it's a really awesome resource. It's awesome. It's really cool. And it was such a full circle moment for me, because I was like, God, this sucks, but like, how freaking cool, It was a weird like excitement in me. I was like, we like basically share DNA.
Pretty much.
Basically.
Yeah.
But like, you can even look up an old picture of him when he's in a wheelchair that they made, like, I think it was like in the 50s or 60s, and like the wheelchair is like, it was just like, oh my, like the connection was insane. And so last year, my late golf coach from college, he actually put on a fundraiser for me. He surprised me at my house. I thought I was just going to be hanging out with my friend that was on the golf team from college. And I opened the door and she's like not acting normal. And I'm like, what is happening? And she's like, oh, nothing, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, weirdo. And so we go out back and we're just like drinking water and hanging out. It was during the summer. It was actually right before I was on the ventilator in August. So I think it was maybe June. And it was before the ventilator. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I hear my dogs barking. And I'm like, bitch, who did you invite over? You know, I do not like that many guests at one time. What is happening? And one of my other friends showed up from the golf team, and my college golf coach showed up, and shout out to Raj. So many amazing connections with him as well. But he was like, what can we do? What do we do to help you? And I was like, the connection between the Bobby Jones Foundation and you being my golf coach, we're raising money for the Bobby Jones Foundation. So he held a fundraiser in, I guess, my honor, and we were able to donate a little over $8,000 to the Bobby Jones Foundation. And oh God, Roger was one of the best men I've ever known in my life. But he got to do that for me, and I will forever be thankful. So I think that's a really good resource if anyone wanted to learn more or make a donation. It's very underfunded. So
I love it. What's the prognosis? Like what does the future look like?
It's tough because everyone is so different, but specifically for my situation, because I have all of these subcategories that go underneath the umbrella, I had reached out to probably 5 or 6 neurosurgeons, because technically sometimes you can go in and shunt a syrinx and it drains that. Okay. Sometimes they can come back, but if it even gives people like a couple of years of relief, that's a couple of years of relief. You know, that's a couple of years I could be more myself again. But with me, the neurosurgeons I had reached out to, they all said, absolutely not. We cannot touch you. Surgery is a definite no because of where your syrinx is located. It is way too close to your brainstem. It's too close to this nerve, to that nerve. We make one wrong cut. You either become a quadriplegic or you die on the table. And so obviously it was like, okay, so no surgery. It's basically just pain management and living each day like the best I can. Sometimes living includes like just laying in bed. Yeah. But that's kind of where I was. And then the Ehlers-Danlos specialist that I was talking about, she recommended a doctor from the University of Cincinnati, and he looked at my scans. And this is another one of those moments where you don't want to get your hopes up, and I'm trying not to, but he said surgery is a possibility.
Yeah, even if there's like a small percentage, would it be worth it to try?
And that was my first thought was absolutely not. I cannot handle being a quadriplegic, or like, I guess I'd rather live in this pain than die and not be able to see my little cousins grow up, or, you know, whatever it is. But then when I switched my mindset to that, it switched overnight. I was like, I'm doing it. If there's a chance, I'm going to do it. Part of the reason at first that I said no was kind of what we talked about earlier, setting that boundary of medically what I'm okay with and what I'm not okay with. And that looks different for everybody. But for me, I've had a lot of really bad experiences with medical situations, obviously. But I'm usually like the 1% of the side effects, the issues. I was approved for IVIG therapy, which is immunoglobulin therapy that helps boost your immune system. And I was the 1% that got aseptic meningitis from that. Gosh. So I always have that little, like, you know, like the devil and the angel on your shoulder. And it's like, do you want to risk it? Like, it's a big decision. But when that flip switched to, like, if I get that little bit of relief, it flipped. So now I'm in the process of trying to get that handled. I have an MRI scheduled to like get those updated, and I could have surgery. they would go in the back of my brain and do a few different types of surgeries to try to get some relief from it. And I would have like a badass undercut.
Yes.
I know. I was like, can I get it tattooed if I shave the back of my head? And like, we're going to go all out.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the prognosis for now. And I think taking it, anybody that deals with something that's a long-term issue, that there's not just like a fix it immediately, or there's not even like, well, this time next year. It's just day by day. And it sucks to say that because you don't know what that day is going to look like. But that's why, like you said, I'm willing to do that surgery, even though I mean, it could be the worst decision I ever make, but it could also be the best.
Yeah. I just have to ask the question, like, why not me? Like, that is what constantly comes to my mind when I think about, like, the odds are stacked against me, but all it takes is one person to, like, push the envelope and show what's possible and demonstrate that there is, you know, some sort of relief, or there is some sort of, like, optimistic step here.
Right. I think that's such an important question for anybody in, like, any situation.
Yeah.
It's hard to not, if you're super pessimistic, it's a hard question to ask yourself. And I always say, like, I'm a recovering pessimistic person. I'm very like on edge. So I would say I'm definitely more of like a realist, but you get to the point where this sounds bad too, but you get to the point where you're desperate. You're desperate for release. Any kind of release of pain, of emotions, of having a doctor listen to you. You just get to that point of breaking. And so I literally, I mean, word for word, like, why not me? Like, this could work.
Yeah. Well, will you keep us posted?
Hell yeah.
Okay. And any of the events, fundraisers, things that you do, update us so we can update everybody listening. And what's your handle so that we can follow?
It is Mar_YNO.
Isn't there a K in there?
Yeah, I feel like there is. Wait, I'm like, wait, because I always just say, Mar, you're not on your own, kid. And I'm like, wait, because
you're not on your own, kid. Okay.
I just talked I feel like I just used so much of my brain power through this. And then my brain was like, girl, this is enough for today.
So just take the first letter of each of those words and then find her on TikTok.
Yes. And Instagram. I try to post, and like, I mean, half the time it's just silly stuff that I just have to get off my chest. It's like a diary.
Yeah. Your random thoughts sometimes are like the best little Easter eggs I find on TikTok.
I don't know why. Like, my brain, I'll sometimes wake up from a dead sleep and be like, oh my God, like I have pencil still stuck in my thumb from like 3rd grade. Like, and I'll just like say like the dumbest shit that like no one cares about. But I feel like it's weirdly relatable to like everyone uses like the filters, and like they're so strategic about everything, and I'm like, oh my God, like, this is me.
Your realness,
take it or leave it.
Your realness and authenticity is so refreshing, and it's honestly like, it's one of the rare gems on social media that you can find. So please go follow her and enjoy.
You'll be in for it. Yeah, you'll need to buckle up.
It's the stories and the sarcasm. and truly, we haven't talked much about this, but you mentioned your humor. And in this resilience model that we coach, high adversity humor is absolutely a way to handle the stress of really traumatic adversity.
That's amazing.
It is. So like it and this is not even comparable in the least, but when I did CrossFit, like part of the reason I loved it so much was because we all came together in suffering, and we just cracked jokes the entire time about how like miserable the workouts were, or how we were all in it together, and like the lack of skill that I have. And, you know, like it was almost self-deprecating, but it was like how we got through the workouts.
Exactly.
And
I think you either, that's one of those things for me, it's like sink or swim.
Yeah.
Because if I don't make a joke about it, I'm either going to like rage cry or like just be in a little like hibernation for a while.
Well, and at least with humor, you get to release some serotonin in the body, and you get a little dose of happiness.
Yes, exactly. I was telling my mom on the way here, I was like, the first time I ever met Kiley was when you came in.
Oh, gosh.
And I said something, and I'm so used to just saying what's on my mind. And I said something, and I was like, oh, shit, like that was like 0% professional. And you came back at me with something like just as inappropriate.
Obviously.
And I was like, okay, no, like we
same
are
wavelength.
We are totally, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, literally. I was like, I don't even know why this like whole thing was kind of worrisome to me, because I know you get it.
Yeah.
Like you're on board with it.
Well, this was amazing, and I really felt like your story needed to be heard, and I hope people consume the shit out of this episode, because arguably it's been probably my favorite episode, just because I think you have given us so much perspective, and honestly, like I'm in tears right now because
you're gonna make me cry.
Well, I just think that we spend so much time looking at shit that doesn't matter and complaining about things that truly are first world problems. And, you know, when you have your health and the ability to just do normal things, and you don't appreciate it, and you hear stories like this where like just going to the grocery store, you know, we complain about going to the grocery store, and you'd kill to go to the grocery store and be able to walk around and have a normal experience. And so I think it's really important for people to hear what you have to say and know that, you know, this life is precious and our time is unknown. You know, we don't know how long we have. So just appreciate what we have right now. And I think that, I don't know, it needed to be told and heard. And for anybody going through a really tough time right now, reach out to Marissa, because, you know, I think it would probably bring some purpose to the pain that you're experiencing, knowing that you're helping somebody else go through a painful journey too. So I hope people lean on you and you get positive feedback from this, because it can't be easy, and your vulnerability is like truly inspiring.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would like to say too, just to like close this out, because I feel like if I don't say it, it's one of those things you get home and you're like, oh, should have said that, should have thought about that. If you are listening to this right now and you're like, man, I have not taken the dog for a walk lately, I have not gone to the park with the kids, I have been I got that hiking gear for Christmas and I have just not used it yet. Now is the time. Now is the time to utilize the body that you have been given. Because I think that I don't think I know if I could go back in time, I would do a lot of things differently.
Well, thank you for that. And please, for the love, everybody, go move that body.
Please. For me. Do it for me, please.
Yeah. If not for yourself, do it for Marissa.
Yes.
Aw.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Redefining Resilience.
To learn more about building your mental and physical readiness, check out odysseyresilience.org.
And follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok.